The story begins aboard a spaceship hovering in outer space near a planet. The captain asks her crew member, Sunja, if they're in the right place, as the surroundings seem off. Sunja reassures her that the location is correct. The planet ahead of them is indeed their destination, Earth. Another crew member, Robert, finds the situation odd, noting that while they are in the right spot, the planet appears to be drenched in radiation and devoid of oxygen. The captain is skeptical that a high-value criminal, a senior member of the notorious Black Blood Gang, would hide in such an inhospitable place. She's frustrated with Robert for possibly providing false information, but Robert insists the intel is accurate, having been obtained when Howen hacked the main system of the Beggar sect. The captain then asks Sunja for his opinion. Sunja, while working on some repairs, remarks that if Howen indeed came to Earth, it would be a suicide mission because the oxygen levels are dangerously low and radiation levels are off the charts. Curious, the captain asks if a human could survive there. Sunja explains that with advanced radiation shielding and a high-capacity internal energy drive, someone might last about 6 hours. The captain then seriously questions Robert, asking if he's willing to stake his life on the accuracy of his intel. Robert hesitates, unable to commit, but the captain doesn't seem to care. She warns him that if the criminal isn't there, he'll be in serious trouble. Sunja then reports detecting a faint sign of life below the Earth's surface, prompting the captain and Robert to commence their search. They arrive at the designated location, with Sunja staying behind to monitor the ship and provide updates. The Earth has become a barren wasteland, and they find themselves at what was once known as Mount The. The captain is surprised to see the infamous Mount The, which Sunja explains is the origin of the Mount Tai star system and was once considered a legendary sanctuary by the old Martial Alliance. The captain scoffs at the thought, mocking the old leaders of the Martial Alliance for letting such a sacred place fall into ruin. Robert remarks that the Alliance never does anything unless it's profitable. Sunja then informs the captain that she is standing precisely where the life sign was detected. Although nothing is visible, the captain kneels and places her hand on the ground, speculating that whatever is buried there must be alive. She then activates her internal energy drive, causing an explosion that reveals a deep hole in the ground. After the dust settles, Sunja confirms that the life sign is still faintly present, and there's a sizable space beneath them. Ignoring Robert's suggestion to use an electronic ladder, the captain dives into the hole, with Robert following reluctantly. They soon discover a massive door with an inscription written by someone named Li Muqin. Robert can't understand the ancient language, so the captain asks Sunja to translate. Sunja explains that the text reads, "Thus the world fears me and imprisoned me with the great Dharma teachings. If you clumsily try to awaken me, death will greet you first." Robert assumes the criminal is behind the door, but the captain dismisses his idea, noting that the inscription is far too old to be from their target. Despite the warning, she decides to open the door, thinking there might be something valuable inside. They are startled to find a figure sitting at the top of a staircase. Although it looks human, they can't be sure what it is. Driven by curiosity, the captain approaches the figure, which is covered in a thick beard and seated in a meditative pose. Robert asks if it's alive or human, doubting that it could have survived being buried for 2,000 years. The captain doesn't answer. She cautiously touches the figure's nose, but there's no reaction, until suddenly, there's an electric spark. The captain is stunned, but before she can react, the figure releases a powerful wave of energy that shoots out of the ground, nearly destroying their ship in space. Sunja, alarmed by the sudden energy surge, tries to contact the captain, but gets no response. Amid the dust and chaos, the captain coughs up blood, having sustained internal injuries from the explosion. She is in shock, struggling to comprehend what just happened. She sees Robert unconscious on the ground. The mysterious figure appears before her and demands to know who she is and why she dared to awaken him. The captain, still in shock, can't answer. The figure speculates that she might have come to challenge him and questions whether a martial artist strong enough to face him has finally emerged. He urges her to speak and explain her reason for awakening him, but she doesn't understand a word he's saying. Realizing the threat, she activates a real-time translation mode. The figure raises his hand to kill her if she doesn't respond. Sensing the danger, the captain desperately uses her powers to defend herself. The clash of their powers is intense, and though she manages to block the attack, she is left exhausted and nearly powerless. Her system warns that her energy drive is nearly depleted, leaving her vulnerable. The figure critiques her technique, recognizing it as the Quantum Golden Summit Divine Art and the Red Mist Divine Palm, but notes that her skills are impure, suggesting she learned them through theft, calling her a grave robber. Enraged, He begins to levitate, furious that a mere thief disturbed his eternal slumber. The captain, frozen in fear, watches helplessly as the figure prepares to strike again. However, to her surprise, the figure suddenly collapses. Confused, she turns to see Robert regaining consciousness. He speculates that the figure died from exposure to radiation without any shielding. But Sunja, monitoring from the ship, informs them that the figure is still alive, with normal breathing and pulse. The captain is shocked and wonders why it collapsed. Sunja explains that the figure likely fainted from energy depletion. It was starving. Later, back on their ship, Robert is incredulous that the captain brought the mysterious figure on board instead of leaving it behind. He reminds her how dangerous it was, even comparing it to a radioactive cockroach, which would at least have some value. The captain, however, insists the figure is worth a lot of money, though the others have no idea what she means. She asks them what the most valuable cultural heritage is today, and Sunja replies, ancient. The closer a martial art is to its original form, the higher its value. The captain confirmed Robert's observation, explaining that this individual was likely an ancient martial artist from 2,000 years ago, a legendary period when martial arts were at their peak. Even the most basic FG grade techniques from that era could fetch at least 10,000 credits. But this person wasn't just at a low level. They were an unimaginable grandmaster, likely S rank or even higher. Robert was stunned, realizing that if the person truly was an S rank, they'd struck gold. But then he asked the crucial question, what if the person wakes up? The captain confidently told him not to worry, boasting that she had bound the individual with celestial silkworm thread, a material so strong it's used for spaceship repairs, and even the head of the Shaolin sect couldn't cut it. However, to her shock, the individual easily broke free and, with a terrifying killing intent, furiously rebuked them, saying, "How dare you lowly grave-robbing thieves try to desecrate me? I will tear you to shreds." The captain and Robert immediately assumed a defensive stance. But to their surprise, Sunja suddenly appeared before the individual with a tray of sausages. They couldn't believe their eyes, but amazingly, the person's anger subsided as they aggressively devoured the sausages. While they watched in disbelief, the captain asked Sunja how he came up with such an idea. Sunja simply replied, "He's been starving for a long time, so the best thing for a hungry beast is sausage." Hours later, the captain explained everything to the individual, clarifying that they weren't grave robbers but bounty hunters who accidentally woke him up. They explained that this was now 2,000 years after his time. After centuries of conflict, humans nearly destroyed the world and chose to live in the skies. While things have since stabilized, weapons, including nuclear arms, are forbidden, with only martial arts allowed. The individual was surprised and admitted he had no idea what a nuclear weapon was. He then asked what this era is called. The captain replied, "This is the year 1105 of the galactic calendar." The man was shocked, asking, "Galactic? Does that mean you all live in the sky?" The captain confirmed this and added that he should consider himself lucky for waking up after 2,000 years. However, the man lashed out, demanding she speak respectfully, reminding her that he was not someone to be addressed lightly. He angrily asked if she wanted to die for deceiving him, but they all pointed out the window, showing him the view outside the ship. The man was stunned when he saw it. The captain then told him that what he was looking at was once where he lived, but now it was utterly ruined. She patted his head and asked, "Now that you've seen it, do you believe us?" The man, exuding killing intent, replied, "Even if I wanted to believe, I can't. There's no way I can accept that the land I'm standing on is round." The captain was disappointed by how astonishingly ignorant he seemed. Suddenly, Robert noticed a foul smell emanating from the man's body. The captain, pinching her nose, told him he could learn more later but first needed to take a shower, and maybe trim his hair, since they would be staying together for a while. The man had no idea what a shower was, so the captain explained that he needed to take a bath. Hours passed, and they all stood in front of the door, waiting for the man to finish. Robert joked that they should have left his hair alone, fearing something mummified might emerge. But to their surprise, when the man finally stepped out, he was an incredibly handsome figure with a sculpted physique. As he dried his hair, he asked if there was more of what he had eaten earlier. They were momentarily speechless, still in disbelief. The captain eventually asked, "Who are you?" Sometime later, they traveled through the Milky Way with the man, now revealed as the protagonist, mesmerized by the view. It didn't seem like the sky at all. Although he once lamented the world's narrowness, he never imagined it could be so vast and strange. The captain then playfully pinched his cheek, asking, "How old are you?" Just so you know, hibernation age doesn't count. Minutes later, at a star cluster in the Milky Way called PS, inside an asteroid space tavern known as Wild Crane Inn, the protagonist was voraciously eating sausages. Robert couldn't believe how much he was consuming. Sunja explained that the man had starved for 2,000 years. So Robert joked that he must be making up for 2,000 years worth of food. Sunja replied that judging by how much he was eating, that might just be the case. The protagonist finished his meal just as, elsewhere, the captain met with the innkeeper Wang the 18th. She told him she was looking for a broker who was both rich and tough because she had something extremely valuable to sell. Wang, smoking his pipe, asked how valuable it must be for her to be so anxious. She replied, "How much would a full collection of 2,000-year-old martial arts manuscripts be worth if they were all originals and all S-rank?" Wang was shocked by what she said. Minutes later, after she left, there was silence. One of Wang's guards asked if what she said could be true. S-rank originals from 2,000 years ago would be incredibly valuable. But Wang dismissed it, saying it was worth 0 credits because if such things existed, one book alone could buy a planet and more. Yet here was a mere mid-tier bounty hunter claiming to have found a bunch of them. He deemed her claim nonsense and instructed his guard to kick them out. The captain returned to her cruise table and asked Robert where Sunja had gone. Robert replied that she went to buy supplies, apologizing for mistakenly referring to Sunja as male earlier. He then asked the captain how the negotiation went. She excitedly said it went well and that Wang would contact them immediately once he found a buyer. She glanced at the protagonist, surprised to see he had eaten all that food by himself. Robert remarked that, luckily, he had just stopped eating. The captain, not knowing how to express herself, admitted that if it weren't for the potential profit, she would have abandoned him. Suddenly, the door opened and several people dressed in purple and black entered, exuding an aura of majesty and mystery. The captain was shocked to see them. They were members of the Heavenly Demon Sect. The large man leading them scanned the room with a device over one eye, searching for someone. The captain and Robert observed them discreetly, recognizing the man as Sanhan Wu, the leader of the Red Wolf Squad. Robert was surprised to see the Red Wolf Squad, knowing them as the inspectors of the Demon Sect, but had no idea why they were here. The captain told him that the squad specializes in tracking, so they must be pursuing someone. She warned him not to make eye contact, as it could be problematic. The protagonist asked if the demon sect she mentioned was the Heavenly Demon Sect. She nonchalantly asked how he knew about the Heavenly Demon Sect when he had been asleep for 2,000 years or if it had existed back then. He didn't reply, but he was surprised that people weren't fleeing. If they were truly from the demon sect, people should be in a panic. But the captain told him there was no need to flee. Although the Heavenly Demon Sect had its quirks, they prided themselves as the foremost orthodox sect in the entire universe and were indeed the best. The protagonist was in disbelief but also elated that the Heavenly Demon Sect had become an orthodox sect. His distant and empty dream had finally come true. Wu continued scanning the inn, searching for someone, as some people looked on confidently while others hid their faces. With his face hidden, the man was ordered by Yu to look up. As the man complied, Yu's scanner activated, revealing his identity. A male with an internal energy of 52.7 Celsius, proficient in the 5-star Blackbird martial art, and wanted for robbery and assault, making him a level 2 criminal. Yu told the man that it was his lucky day since he wasn't their target, but advised him to surrender to the Martial Alliance to avoid future consequences. Unexpectedly, our protagonist began patting the man's head, overjoyed as if his seemingly impossible dream had come true through the efforts of the younger generation. Everyone in the inn was shocked, unable to believe what they were witnessing. The protagonist admired the young man's achievements, hugging his head while expressing sympathy for the hardships the younger generation must have faced to reach such heights. Yu, barely containing his anger, asked the inn's patrons if the protagonist had any intelligence issues. Robert nervously stepped forward, stammering that the protagonist didn't have intelligence issues but that his social skills were somewhat lacking. Yu then turned to the protagonist, calling him child and remarking that it was his lucky day too, because if Yu had sensed any martial energy in him, he would have already been reduced to pieces. He attempted to remove the protagonist's hand from his head, but it wouldn't budge. Perplexed by the immovability of the protagonist, Yu realized that brute strength wouldn't work. He activated his internal energy, maxing out his blood wolf demon art, and furiously demanded that the protagonist stop fooling around. The intensity of Yu's energy surprised everyone, even his underlings. However, the protagonist swiftly returned to stand beside the captain and Robert, completely unaffected by Yu's powerful outburst. Yu was incredulous, wondering aloud if he was in poor condition. He then demanded the protagonist's identity, shocked that the protagonist was still alive despite Yu's clear intent to kill him instantly. To his astonishment, when he tried to retrieve the protagonist's details, everything came up unconfirmed. Gender, internal energy, martial arts, none of it registered in the system. It was as if the protagonist was a pure natural being with no internal energy, yet somehow still alive after being attacked. The protagonist calmly told Yu that it appeared he had mastered the Blood Wolf demon art, a lower-level technique among the heavenly demon body cultivation arts. However, he noted Yu's internal energy and chi were not in harmony due to a flawed training method. The protagonist offered to personally correct it, calling it the opportunity of a lifetime for Yu. But unlike others who might immediately prostrate themselves before the protagonist, recognizing the truth in his words, Yu called him a lunatic and attacked with his red wolf demon claw. The protagonist effortlessly dodged the attacks without even moving from his spot. Yu unleashed multiple slashes, then switched techniques from Red Wolf Explosion to Red Wolf Tremor Wave and Red Wolf Ghost Claw, but nothing worked. The protagonist, faster than Yu could imagine, began analyzing Yu's strengths and weaknesses while dodging. He observed that Yu had sufficient internal energy and precise form, but something was off. Finally, as Yu attempted another strike, the protagonist grabbed his head and slammed it into the ground, commanding him to stop his nonsense because his skills were crude. Everyone in the inn was in disbelief. The protagonist then lectured Yu, saying that although he had learned the technique properly, he hadn't truly understood it. True martial arts, he explained, aren't just about imitation but about adapting and making them one's own. He told Yu to get up if he understood, but there was no response. After all, how could anyone get up after having their head slammed into the ground with such force? Yu's underlings, also in shock, rushed forward to take down the protagonist for daring to lay a hand on their platoon leader. What followed was a brutal confrontation. Hours later, in District 32 of the Heavenly Demon Sect, the scene from the inn was replayed on a screen. The district commander, Zhang Rto, couldn't believe what he was seeing. Yu and his entire squad had been knocked out cold. The senior elder, Zhou Chanro, who had come to report the incident, informed the commander that Yu and his squad had suffered severe bruising but were not in any life-threatening danger. However, RTO didn't consider this fortunate, seeing it as a humiliating defeat against an unknown stranger. Chanro confirmed that Mu Qin, the protagonist, wasn't registered in the Martial Alliance database, though his companions were. They were a group of bounty hunters known as Seville, who mainly dealt with B-class or lower petty criminals. The team was led by S. Young, known as the Blazing Devil, a well-known bounty hunter with ties to both orthodox and unorthodox worlds. Despite the incident, the Seville crew had left Wild Crane in but could still be tracked. Chanro suggested sending a pursuit team, but the commander decided to handle the matter personally. He pressed a green button, bringing up a screen that displayed a figure. The person on the screen addressed the commander, asking if there was a request for their Greenwood group. Meanwhile, sometime later, the captain and her crew were navigating through the Milky Way. Mu Qin, now identified by his name, sat calmly, holding a knife and fork, waiting for his meal. The captain, S. Young, and Robert stood nearby watching him. Robert nervously remarked to S. Young that she must be just as scared as he was, considering how Mu Qin had effortlessly subdued Yu and the Red Wolf platoon with a single blow, despite them being A-rank martial artists. S. Young, trying to maintain her composure, boastfully claimed that she could also win if she fought them seriously, although she acknowledged they were at the lower end of the A-rank spectrum. Robert added that he might have been able to scratch them a little if he put his life on the line, but Mu Qin had swatted them aside like flies. S. Young then approached Mu Qin, slamming her hand on the table and demanding they talk. Mu Qin, serious, replied that he would only talk if there was food. Ignoring his request, S. Young insisted they talk first, asking for his name. When he didn't respond, Robert suggested she use honorifics, but she persisted, asking again if he was deaf. Just then, Sunia arrived with a tray of sausages, but S. Young told Mu Qin not to even think about eating until they were done talking. After a brief silence, Mu Qin finally responded, revealing his name as Li Mu Qin. From this point forward, Mu Qin would be referred to by his name, and the captain would be known as S. Young. S. Young then asked Mu Qin about his identity or past profession, but there was no immediate response. After a moment, Mu Qin replied that his past profession was the Supreme Heavenly Demon. S. Young, incredulous, wondered aloud if they had somehow fed him bad hot dogs. Suddenly, the ship's emergency alarm blared. S. Young and Robert were startled, unsure of what was happening. Sunia, responsible for ship security, informed them that they were being targeted at close range. Young rushed to assess the situation, quickly realizing that the attackers were not from the heavenly demon sect seeking revenge for Muchin's earlier encounter, but rather the Greenwood, their ships surrounding the Seville cruise vessel. Among the attackers was the leader of the Galaxy Division of the 72 Strongholds of Greenwood, known as the Black Tiger of the Crescent Moon, Kim Spam. A subordinate reported to Spam that the Seville ship had been confirmed, and the bounty targets were surrounded. Spam, considering his next move, was asked if they should fire the EMP capture round, but he remained silent, leaving the situation on a knife's edge. Surrounded by bounty hunters, Sunbomb received confirmation that the ship indeed belonged to a group led by the Blazing Devil, Ser Young. He was puzzled as to why the Heavenly Demon Sect would bother with such a small group, but the reason soon became clear. The bounty request from the Heavenly Demon Sect wasn't for capture. It was to erase Ser Young and her crew from existence. Sunbomb found the request odd, suspecting that Chanro, who entrusted the task to them, had ulterior motives. Given that the Heavenly Demon Sect was more adept at taking lives, Sunbomb was convinced there must be a trap aboard Ser Young's ship. Despite being surrounded by a fleet of ships, Ser Young showed no signs of fear, initially assuming the bounty hunters had come to rob them. However, Robert doubted this, pointing out that such a large fleet wouldn't target them for robbery, especially since they were poor and not worth the trouble. Understanding his point, Ser Young confidently stated that it didn't matter. They could just beat the Greenwood scumbags and toss them out if necessary. But Sunia warned them that it wouldn't be that simple, as they were dealing with the Galaxy Division of the 72 Strongholds of Greenwood, and it seemed the entire division had been mobilized. Ser Young was taken aback, asking if this meant the division leader, the Black Tiger Kim Sunbomb, was also present. She admitted that even she couldn't easily defeat Sunbomb. Robert, more realistic, told her she'd be dead within 3 moves if she faced him directly. Despite her bravado, Robert could tell she was just trying to act strong and suggested they surrender quickly since they had nothing to lose. After thinking it over, Ser Young decided they would let the enemy fire the EMP capture round to cut off their ship's energy, allowing them to board and search the ship. They would even donate anything unnecessary for survival if the enemy wanted it. Robert, surprised, pointed out that her plan was essentially surrendering. Meanwhile, Muchin was admiring the view from the ship, oblivious to the danger. Ser Young approached him and patted his shoulder, telling him the ship would shake a bit when the EMP hit, but he shouldn't panic as the space laws forbade the use of destructive power. She then left him, realizing he didn't seem to understand what she was saying. On her way out, she casually told him not to interfere, as the enemies would leave once they took what they wanted. However, if a fight broke out and things escalated, she couldn't guarantee their survival. Ser Young asked Sunia if the ship had already been locked down and told her to brace for impact. But to her shock, Sunia informed her that the enemy wasn't firing an EMP. They were charging a ship-destroying photon cannon, indicating they intended to kill them. On the Greenwood ship, a subordinate warned Sunbomb that using the photon cannon violated space regulations and could cause trouble later. He suggested capturing and disposing of them quietly instead. However, Sunbomb, uneasy about the mission, decided it was safer to blow them to dust and shift the blame to the Heavenly Demon Sect. Back on Ser Young's ship, she panicked and asked Sunia if they could warp out and escape, but Sunia explained that they were surrounded on all sides. When Ser Young asked if they could block the attack with their shields, Sunia reminded her that they had sold some ship parts for living expenses, leaving them defenseless. As the photon cannon charged to full power, Sunbomb gave the order to fire. The energy beam shot directly at Ser Young's ship, leaving everyone on board hopeless, having accepted their fate. However, to Sunbomb's surprise, the ship emerged unscathed. The attack had been blocked by another large ship, which belonged to a woman holding a spear. This woman was Elena, popularly known by her nickname, the 8th-foot fighting ghost. This development shocked Ser Young, Robert, and Mujin, while even Sun Bom, the leader of the Galaxy Division of the 72 Strongholds of Greenwood, was baffled by Elena's sudden appearance. Sun Bomb's ship driver informed him that Elena had used a terraformation-grade shield to block their attack. Although they could potentially penetrate it by maxing out the photon cannon's output, Sun Bom decided against it, not wanting to escalate the situation into a space war, especially since Elena wasn't someone they could handle easily. Instead, Sun Bom decided to meet her in person, teleporting over to her ship. Upon meeting Elena, Sun Bom greeted her as his sister, trying to remind her of their family connection. However, Elena was uninterested and brusquely told him to get lost. Sun Bom was taken aback by her coldness but quickly reintroduced himself as the leader of the Galaxy Division. warning her that telling him to get lost was akin to disrespecting all of Greenwood. Elena remained silent, merely releasing her aura in preparation for battle. Watching from the S-Devil's ship, Robert realized a fight was imminent, but Se-Young warned him that defeating Elena was no easy task. She also mentioned that if Greenwood was unlucky, Elena's mother, known as the Lioness, might also join the fray, though Robert was unsure what she meant by that. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Sun Bom decided to surrender, acknowledging that a fight with Elena would only result in losses, especially since the mission to destroy the S-Devil's ship wasn't worth the risk. He offered to yield the ship to Elena if that was her target, but she simply turned her back on him and reiterated her command to get lost. Sun Bom, now suspicious, wondered why Elena was interested in the seemingly worthless S-Devil's ship. Elena then addressed the crew of the S-Devil's ship through a speaker, giving them an ultimatum: hand over what she wanted or everyone would die. Se-Young, Robert, and Mu-Jin were confused, thinking Elena might also be after something valuable on their ship. Robert asked Se-Young if she had stashed something valuable without telling them, but they both knew they had nothing of worth. Se-Young then asked Mu-Jin if he had any history with Elena, joking that maybe they had a fling or a bad breakup, but Mu-Jin assured her that Elena wasn't after him. Instead, he suggested that it might be because of a child on board. Suddenly, a young girl named Wai-Quarren revealed herself from the shadows, having been using an advanced stealth technique to remain hidden. Robert and Se-Young were stunned, having no idea who she was. Mu-Jin explained that she had followed them from the inn, but he let her be since she posed no immediate threat. He was impressed by her advanced concealment technique, though Sunia pointed out that she was using a stealth ring, a quantum technology that was very expensive. Se-Young, uninterested in the specifics, demanded to know who the girl was and why she had snuck onto their ship. Quarren nervously introduced herself and revealed that she was likely the target of the people outside, explaining that they wouldn't stop pursuing her as long as she was alive. Upon hearing her name, Robert recognized Quarren as the main vocalist of Prosan, a top rookie idol duo in the galaxy. He excitedly explained her background to Se-Young, who was unfamiliar with the group. Despite the tension, Robert was thrilled to have such a famous person on board, even pulling out his phone to confirm her identity. Meanwhile, Elena repeated her demand, giving them 10 minutes to hand Quarren over or face death. Despite the growing danger, Se-Young remained calm. She decided that since Quarren was an uninvited guest, she should be sent out to Elena. Robert tried to persuade Se-Young otherwise, but she was resolute, arguing that they couldn't protect Quarren, especially against someone as formidable as Elena. Reluctantly, they placed Quarren at the ship's door to be handed over. As they watched Quarren prepare to leave, Robert expressed his doubts, feeling that sending her out wasn't the right thing to do, especially since she was the main vocalist of Prosan. Se-Young, however, believed that their only chance of survival was to comply with Elena's demands. Just as Quarren was about to be handed over, Mu-Jin unexpectedly intervened, placing his hand on Se-Young's shoulder. Quarren was surprised and grateful for his support, but Se-Young and Robert were confused about how he had suddenly appeared there. Panic ensued as Se-Young tried to stop the door from opening, fearing that Mu-Jin would be exposed to the vacuum of space without protection. Despite her efforts, it was too late. The ship's door opened, and Mu-Jin stepped out into space. Quarren warned Mu-Jin to be careful, noting that both Elena and Sunbom were incredibly strong martial artists. However, Mu-Jin began to exhibit strange symptoms. His eyes turned red, and he appeared to be in distress, struggling to breathe. Both Elena and Sunbom watched in confusion as Mu-Jin's face swelled, and he eventually collapsed, seemingly unconscious. Se-Young, now in a state of panic, rushed to Mu-Jin's side and activated a nanoshield to protect him. She frantically tried to revive him, pleading with him to wake up and breathe. To her relief, Mu-Jin suddenly regained consciousness as if nothing had happened. Se-Young hastily retracted her hands, her pride preventing her from revealing her concern for Mu-Jin. Incredulously, she questioned his sanity for venturing into space without protection, warning him about the fatal temperatures and pressures that could destroy his body within seconds. Mu-Jin simply smiled back, reassuring her that his status as a supreme being made him impervious to such earthly perils. As they approached the location where Elena and Sunbom awaited, Robert, who had been observing the situation, expressed relief that Se-Young had managed to provide Mu-Jin with a protective shield, albeit belatedly. However, SJA pointed out that it was far too late and that not even the greatest of masters could survive such conditions unaided for long. Yet, Mu-Jin had endured it impressively for over 6 minutes without any signs of damage, a testament to his extraordinary capabilities beyond human limits. Arriving at the scene, Se-ryung was immediately struck by the intense auras of both Elena and Sun Bom. The power emanating from Elena confirmed her reputation as a formidable combatant, eager for confrontation. Despite the palpable tension, Se-ryung warned Muchin not to interfere, insisting she would handle the situation herself. She greeted Elena and Sun Bom cordially, attempting to introduce herself and gauge if they recognized her as S-Young, leader of the S-Devils and the Blazing Devil. However, her attempts at conversation were met with indifference, as neither Elena nor Sun Bom seemed to acknowledge her presence or authority. Meanwhile, Weren clutched Muchin's hand, visibly shaken by the intimidating figures before them. Muchin comforted her, ensuring there was no need for nervousness, as he was there to protect her. He then shared with her that Elena was not merely human but a fighting ghost, renowned since her youth for seeking and defeating opponents across the galaxy in her custom-built spaceship turned fighting arena. Se-ryung attempted to defuse the situation by proposing they discuss matters peacefully as fellow Central Plane residents. However, Elena's only response was through her sword, launching an energy attack that enveloped Se-ryung in smoke and debris. After the smoke cleared, Se-ryung, unharmed, reprimanded Elena for her rash aggression, emphasizing her wish to talk rather than fight. Sun Bom quietly admired Se-ryung's agility and skill in dodging the attack, though he internally noted that provoking Elena might lead to a more painful demise. Amidst the confusion, Muchin and Weren were surprised to find themselves unscathed. Muchin lightly reassured Weren, downplaying the attack as a mere child's prank despite its fierce appearance. Elena then prepared for another strike, cautious of Muchin's enigmatic abilities. Despite Se-ryung's pleas for him not to get involved, Muchin stepped forward, challenging Elena directly. He insisted that any grievances with Weren be directed through him, declaring his protective stance over her. Sun Bom, attempting to assess Muchin, found no data or internal energy signatures, leaving him puzzled about Muchin's true nature. As tensions escalated, Muchin boldly instructed Elena to leave if she had no legitimate business. Suddenly, she launched an attack that clashed intensely with Muchin's defenses. To everyone's astonishment, Muchin effortlessly blocked her spear with one hand, questioning her motives for the confrontation. Is he did it without internal energy. Ma-jin then said to Elena, "There is something odd about you. You are utilizing the radiant sword technique of Dangkong sect with a staff, which is one thing, but channeling the Shaolin's great Brahma divine art for internal energy is surprising. Moreover, what surprised him the most is the fact that she's so young but already has internal energy surpassing that of 3 cycles. So he wondered if she experienced a fortunate encounter or something else. Just so you guys know, a cycle is equivalent to 60 years worth of energy. So since she has 3 cycles, she should have 180 years worth of internal energy." Elena then increased her internal energy drive to operate at 90%. Ma-jin was quite surprised at the fact that she was able to switch her internal energy to Wang's Red Sun divine art with just her 3 cycles of energy, but surprisingly enough, she didn't stop at that. She increased her internal energy drive to be operating at 95%. Even Sun Bom was impressed at how incredible she was, so he wondered if she's always this strong. Ma-jin realized that she is going all out, so he decided to get serious a little bit. At the same time, Elena, who was busy increasing her energy, got a warning sound from her ring. Going back to the past when she was about to venture out into the world, her mother told her that she wouldn't stop her if she had made up her mind. Although any fight that furthers her training is permitted, death is not allowed. She told Elena that she is already strong enough to face the world because throughout the entire world, there are less than 10 martial artists who can harm her, and even they cannot push her to the brink of death. But she told her to remember one rule. She placed a ring in her hand and then told her that if the ring sounds, then she must flee no matter what because the ringing sound means the opponent is beyond her reach, and if she was to ignore the warning, she'd surely die. At that moment, when she looked Ma-jin in the eyes, voices in her ears were telling her to run away with her tail between her legs without hesitating. They told her to know her place, to just hide away and live since there is nothing she can do. She remembered being introduced to her siblings by her mother. She told her that although they have different fathers, they were all born from her womb, and since they share the same blood, they should stay close to each other. But at that moment, when those thoughts were coming into her head, she increased her internal energy drive all the way to 120%. Ma-jin was quite surprised. Not just him, everyone on site was surprised at her sudden surge of power. Surprisingly enough, she completely transformed into a more powerful being. Ma Jin was impressed at her unheard-of talent since she was able to undergo transcendental awakening with just a mere transformation. That was when he realized that years have passed, same goes for martial arts, but her power is a bit too much for her to handle. Elena then charged forward to attack him. She got close and she swung her staff at him, but he dodged her first strike. Since it's the chaotic storm's word technique of a sect, she used another attack, which is the sun and moon twin wheels of the clan sect, but he was still able to dodge it. At the same time, her energy drive increased to 125%. The force from her attack increased, but Ma Jin dodged it because he was familiar with all the techniques she was using. Seeing that she was still unable to land a hit on him, she increased her energy drive to 140%. This time around, her energy transformed into a blazing storm, sending out multiple attacks. It's the technique called the dog-beating stick technique and the drunken 8 immortal step of the beggar sect and the 4,000 red needles of the esoteric sect. After all her attack combos and combinations of different techniques, he was still able to dodge her attack with no stress at all, as if he was toying with her. And now she increased her energy drive to 170%. But Ma Jin wasn't interested in playing with her anymore. He then unleashed an attack with just a swing of his hand, and bang, there was an explosion from their collision. The area was covered in smoke, and for a moment, no one knew if the battle had ended or not. But to their surprise, she came out unharmed, and she underwent another transformation. This time around, it was more like an aurora descent. She then charged forward at full speed, increasing her internal energy drive to operate at 190%. And as she was about to clash, Ma Jin told her through telepathy to stop. Although her talent is admirable, she has crossed the line of righteousness since her awakening shows wounds and desires. In addition, she's been consumed by her inner demons, and if she continued to reach any further, he'd have no choice but to kill her to stop her, since he promised to protect Hin, so he won't let her harm her. And so he activated his energy on his hand, summoning a very long sword at the same, determined to protect Warren and stop Elena if necessary. As Elena charged at him with full force, the resulting collision of their powers caused a massive explosion that rocked their surroundings, stunning both allies and adversaries. Sun Boem, narrowly escaping back to his ship, marveled at Muchin's formidable power, which rivaled the destructive force of their most potent weapons. In the aftermath, as they surveyed the damage, Ser Young confronted Muchin, questioning his reckless disregard for their safety. Muchin, injured yet resolute, explained that the extraordinary power he faced had necessitated his full force. They looked up to see Elena, still alive but significantly weakened, protected by an unseen force, leaving them to ponder the true extent of her abilities and the mysterious circumstances that had brought them all together in this volatile confrontation. The person who protected her was so beautiful, it was as if an angel had descended from heaven. Ser Young was astonished to see her, for she recognized the woman as the West Heaven Sword Matron, Sun Bomb, Elena's mother. Hours later, Elena was placed in a healing liquid, while Muchin and the others stood behind her. Spam was on his knees, showing respect to his mother. Sunbong politely admitted that he didn't know she would be coming and offered to be punished for his lack of loyalty and filial piety. However, she told him that his opinion wasn't needed at that moment and instructed him to act as if he weren't there. She then politely greeted Muchin, introducing herself as the West Heaven Sword Matron. Spam was surprised to see his mother showing respect, and even Ser Young found it hard to believe that the West Heaven Sword Matron was being so courteous. The matron confessed to Muchin that she had violated the dueling code of martial arts by intervening rudely, driven by familial affection. She even offered to cut off her arm as an apology if he wished, but Muchin told her there was no need for such an extreme gesture. He then asked if Elena was her daughter, but Ser Young quickly intervened, urging him to speak respectfully as she was the West Heaven Sword Matron. The matron confirmed that Elena was indeed her daughter. Muchin then remarked that her intervention wasn't a bad choice, as family takes precedence over the dueling code. Ser Young once again pleaded for him to speak politely, reminding him that the woman before them was one of the 5 immortals, the West Heaven Sword Matron, known for her terrible temper and ability to split someone in two with just a glare. To everyone's surprise, the matron knelt down to beg for forgiveness. Some hours later, outside the ship, the matron confided in Muchin that she didn't know the exact reason why her daughter's consciousness had yet to recover. She also mentioned that Elena had likely passed through Mount Ha before coming to fight him, possibly commissioned to attack the Devil ship. However, she noted that the martial arts he demonstrated earlier seemed to be the Demon Heart Surasword technique, and she asked if he had any connection to the Heavenly Demon sect. Mooch Jean replied that he didn't know. In the past, there was certainly a deep connection, but time has passed. It corrodes even the strongest bond as if they were iron and dissolves connections dearer than life itself. The matron thought to herself as she looked at him in silence. She acknowledged inwardly that Mu Jin was indeed an extraordinary figure, with perfectly refined qi, internal energy, and martial arts, devoid of any artificiality. Such a state is only achievable during the peak period of martial arts, and what surprised her even more was that he appeared to be in his early 20s. She speculated that this might be the result of rejuvenation. The matron then asked, "May I dare request something from you?" Mu Jin responded, "Are you proposing a serious fight?" She was taken aback by his accurate deduction. He continued, "Though you're being polite, every word you say drips with murderous intent, like a sword being sharpened against flint, getting sharper and sharper." The matron acknowledged his sharp ears for catching her subtle whispers. Mu Jin then told her that he had never refused a challenge, but she should know that if they fight, one of them is bound to die, and the survivor would be severely injured. Something too strong has no room to bend. Otherwise, it will break, he warned. The matron immediately unleashed her energy, ready for the fight, since he had discerned her intentions. But Mu Jin surprised her by asking if they had any compelling reason to fight. He then suggested that they should only fight if they have a reason in the future, as he still wanted to see more of the world. The matron, unable to respond, retracted her energy, and so the devil ship left the premises. Some hours later, Spam informed the matron that he had received a request from the heavenly demon sect to destroy the devil ship, a mission intended to be a silencing kill. The matron was puzzled by why the commander of the heavenly demon sect wanted to kill Mu Jin, despite the fact that he clearly possessed the supreme martial arts of the sect. Additionally, she wondered why they would hire Greenwood. It didn't make sense. Spam then told her that recent information suggested that the heavenly demon Red Wolf platoon had been annihilated by an unknown entity. Maybe they might be related, the matron told him. But there's no need to overthink it. No matter the situation, your imagination won't be able to deduce it. She advised him to prove his usefulness by thoroughly tracking the S-Devil ship and reporting back. Sunbomb reassured her not to worry, boasting that the people from Greenwood pride themselves as the best trackers in the world. The matron looked at him for a moment in silence, then told him that she would trust him, but he should track them without interfering, as she did not want her child to get hurt. Spam was touched by her words, but then she paused and asked, "Ah, by the way, what's your name again?" He was shocked, thinking, "How can you not know your own child's name?" Meanwhile, on the S-Devil's ship, Sir Young furiously asked H. Rin, "What mess have you gotten yourself into? What did you do that got you involved with Greenwood or the 8-foot fighting ghost? And on top of that, you got the West Heaven matron involved? What the hell did you do? Did you flip the world upside down?" A few minutes later, after things had calmed down, they sat around a table. W. Rin apologized for causing them trouble, admitting that she honestly didn't know why everyone was after her. She explained that everything changed when she returned to Mount Hua, her hometown, after finishing her tour. Although the people in her hometown were the same, everyone suddenly tried to kill her, so she ran all the way to the S-Devil's ship. At the same time, Mu Jin was furiously munching on snacks. Ser Young asked Sunja if she understood what Huan was saying, as she herself had no clue. Sunja, however, found it equally difficult to understand her. Suddenly, Robert hit the table with force and exclaimed, "Did you just say Mount Hua? Do you mean the Mount Hua planet? My hometown?" He then demanded that she immediately tell him what happened to Mount Hua, but Huan, unable to hold in her disgust at how Mu Jin was eating, ended up throwing up. Meanwhile, in the room where Elena was being treated, Elena broke out of the tube after waking up, coughing and struggling to catch her breath. The matron asked Elena to tell her what happened on Mount Hua. At the same time, in the Wild Crane Inn, Wang saw the video of Mu Jin and Elena's battle, and everyone was surprised at such an intense fight. He then recalled Sir Young asking him how much a full collection of 2,000-year-old martial arts manuscripts would be worth if they were all original and all S-rank. He thought to himself that if what Sir Young said was true, they would be making a fortune. In another scene at the Heavenly Demon Sect, our 32 RTO couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the battle clip of Mu Jin and Elena. He had no idea what was happening. At the same time, someone asked him, "What do you think? Isn't it a familiar martial art?" That someone was none other than the matron. Rack acknowledged that it was a level of martial prowess never seen or heard before, but he didn't understand why she said the martial art Mu Jin used was familiar. The matron looked at him in silence and thought to herself that it seemed like he really didn't know anything about Mu Jin. She then asked him, "Then why did you pursue that person, especially with Greenwood's involvement?" Rack replied, stating that it was an internal matter of the sect, and even though she was the sword matron who ruled over the West Heaven cosmic code, it was not something she should concern herself with. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, Rak's neck was cut. The cut was so swift that it took him a moment to realize he was bleeding, though it wasn't a deep wound. He held his neck and asked her if she was declaring war against the heavenly demon sect. She replied with a smile, "Do you think I, of all people, would fear bloodshed?" Her words reminded Rak that she was a woman who had devoured her own children out of her obsession with martial arts, and she wasn't one to act based on profit and loss. The matron then activated her sword energy, which was so ferocious yet subtle that it was capable of splitting oceans and cutting mountains. She told him to answer her or die. Rak replied, "Isn't the choice obvious? Even if all 1,076 martial artists of District 32 attacked together, there is no way they could surpass the West Heaven Sword Matron." He then activated his own energy to prepare for battle and challenged her to cut down all 1,076 martial artists if she planned on doing so. The matron thought to herself that the stories about the heavenly demon sect getting tougher with each passing day seemed to be true. She then mentioned that the technique Mujin used was the Demon Heart Surasword technique, but Rak had no idea what she meant by that. She told him that the sword technique that cut down her daughter was the Demon Heart Surasword technique, which was second in the heavenly demon sect's martial hierarchy. However, Rak loudly proclaimed that it was impossible for that to be the Demon Heart Surasword technique, as it had been a lost martial art for thousands of years and existed only in legends. No one in their sect had ever practiced it. The matron replied that it wasn't her problem if his knowledge was lacking, but she had told him what she knew. She then asked him again why he had issued a kill order for Muchin. Rak was speechless for a moment before he admitted that he wasn't chasing after Much-jin, but rather he was after the girl, Hyun. Hours later, in the Tal Vitra orbiting star system, the S-Devil ship arrived at Mount Hua planet. They scanned through Ham County with their surveillance cameras, but surprisingly, it looked completely empty. S. Young asked why it was empty and wondered if it was a holiday, but Robert told her that might not be the case because all the store doors were open. Sunja added that the town had over 10,000 inhabitants, yet there were no signs of life at all. Robert anxiously shook Se Young, urging her to go down quickly, as he was sure something terrifying had happened and that everyone had either died or fled. She then asked him why he was suddenly so agitated, and he replied that it was because it was his hometown. At the same time, Hyun was crying while looking at Mount Hua. Muchin then told her to speak up if she knew anything, but just as she was about to speak, Sunja informed them that she had detected a life signal. Judging by the location, it was inside Mount Hua's main headquarters in the Jaha Pavilion. Se Young was surprised to hear this, as the Jaha Pavilion was where the leader of the Mount Hua sect resided. Sunja told them that although there was only one person, the life signal was very strong. It seemed like Hyun knew something but wasn't saying it, so they all went to the Jaha Pavilion. The pavilion was covered in fog, with only some parts visible. As they approached, Se Young asked Robert why he had suited up that way. He told her that he came to fight whoever dared to mess with his homeland. She then asked if his suit was still functional since he had stashed it away in the warehouse as soon as he was discharged. She even thought he had already sold it off, but he told her that he would always be a special forces soldier, even if he was tired. Se Young then asked Sunja if she was still detecting a signal. Sunja replied that the life signal was getting stronger and might not even be human, so she advised caution. Se Young then told Sunja to deploy a reconnaissance drone first, as they needed to identify what it was. However, before they could do so, Robert ran in at full speed to confront the monster inside. Se Young didn't stop him but decided to stay on alert and follow him. As they walked through the tunnel, a massive outburst of fire energy was shot at them. Under normal circumstances, such firepower would have been lethal, but Muchin was quick enough to save them. Se Young was bewildered by what had just happened, but what shocked her most was how Muchin had thrown her to the ground. They then hurried to where Robert was, only to find him covered in smoke. He had also blocked the fire that had been shot at him earlier. Se Young couldn't tell if he was dead or alive since he wasn't moving, so she asked Sunja if he was okay. Sunja replied that he was fine, and the combat armor had done its job. The reason he wasn't responding was probably because he was scared out of his mind. Mujin stood alone, looking up. Suddenly, the room filled with something like blossoming flowers, and in front of him stood a man exuding a terrifying amount of energy. Muchin stood still, saying nothing. Sunja asked if the man was the source of the life signal, and Sunja confirmed it, saying that if the data was correct, the man was the leader of Mount H, popularly known as the Flourishing Blossom Sword Sovereign, Y1. Muchin touched one of the flowers and remarked that the fact the plum blossoms opened from the heat indicated that the man had achieved the peak of the plum blossom heavenly fragrance heart technique, though he couldn't understand why the plum blossoms had bloomed in purple. He deduced that the plum blossom heavenly fragrance technique had mixed with the purple mist divine art, and if that was the case, things weren't looking good. At the same time, Hyun was crying because the man standing before them was her father, surrounded by an intense aura of energy. As the energy intensifies, Lady Se-young asks the power man Muchin what's wrong and what's the problem. Her tone suggests that something is amiss. The scene shifts back to the meditating figure. Muchin explains the significance of the techniques being used. The plum blossom heavenly fragrance heart technique embodies extreme yang, while the purple mist divine art embodies extreme yin. It is revealed that these techniques are so powerful that even the elders of Mount Hua can only choose one to master. If extreme yang and extreme yin mix, the combination of these two opposing forces could have unpredictable and catastrophic consequences. When a martial artist's desires surpass their limits, a demon takes root in their heart. The person is no longer human. The tension rises as the powerful guy urges others to flee, acknowledging that the fight won't be an easy one, and admitting that even he cannot guarantee safety of them all. The girl Hyun calls this meditating figure her father and runs towards him. Se-young tries stopping her with a desperate final cry because going there could end badly, as the characters are engulfed in a blinding clash of energies, foreshadowing the impending battle and the unknown outcomes that await them all. Mujin says it's too late to stop anyone now. The girl Hyun has already reached her father, whose body is engulfed in a swirl of vibrant light. The ship pilot Sunja is also watching the events unfolding from a distance. With a fearful expression, she sees danger as the girl goes towards her father, marked by an ominous countdown clock ticking. The girl Hyun embraces the powerful energy source which is her father. The story then zooms out to reveal a grand, glowing chamber where a lone figure is seated on a throne, bathed in a golden light. Next we see a gentle, reassuring touch, hinting at a complex relationship filled with tension and care. Se-young does not understand what is happening, but then a voice is heard saying that it is normal. The world has returned to normal. The ship pilot Sunja is also confused what this voice is talking about. Then we see the countdown reaching 18. Mount Hua starts getting filled with life. People can be seen on the streets, unlike what was seen when they arrived earlier when the place was all empty. Now the people who had disappeared have somehow appeared all at once. They are also acting like nothing abnormal ever happened to them, like they never disappeared. Se-young just watches in awe while Mujin becomes pretty calm for now. Mount Hua keeps getting more and more lively with lights all around. Then, in a peaceful setting, the characters are seen in a more relaxed atmosphere after the intense events that had transpired. Se-young reminds how Sunja the pilot told them that there were no people while in actuality the place is filled with them, so she wonders if the bioscanner was malfunctioning. Pilot reminds her back that they both checked it together and at that time the scanner was definitely working normally. She says that even now the scanner is working normally, but still something is off, as all the people who are here have had all their internal energy completely drained. Everyone, both children and adults alike. But Robert feels like if they all look alright then things just have to be also fine. Previously they thought everyone was dead, but now they can see that they are alive. So for now the glasses guy Robert just wants some food to satiate his hunger. He asks the staff there to take his order. Se-young points out how just a while ago he was making such a fuss all by himself while now this. She is jealous of this simple way of living. A server starts coming over. Robert says he wants to have a double serving of noodles and a large special dompa pork. He wanted to order more, but the server just passes him by completely ignoring him like he is not even there. This confuses Robert himself as well, but maybe she was just too busy to hear him, as she is also taking and bringing orders of the other folks around there. However, he certainly was talking to her directly. Then, when she starts coming back his way, he tries again to place his order. However, once again, she just ignores. Robert was not expecting someone to ignore his order twice. Pilot Sunja points out that it's not that they did not hear them. It's like they cannot even see them. No one in the restaurant has ever stopped to look at them. Even when these folks were right in front of them, they just pass by as if they are just part of the scenery. They are not aware of these folks at all, as if they never existed in the first place. Se-young just does not want to get involved as she is having a bad feeling about this. Then we see someone pouring tea in a cup. This is that same fellow who was surrounded by that strange aura, but now he looks like just any old grandpa. But still, even though there are guests right in front of him, the girl Hyun says that he is not someone who would rudely drink his tea alone. So this has to mean that his father just cannot see them. He has been like this since she returned from her tour. But the strange thing is he does all his work and tasks normally. He still drinks tea, goes for inspections, eats meals, tends to the garden. Always at the exact same times every day like a wound-up doll. Mu-jin reaches out to the elder figure, who is seated calmly, trying to examine the elder out of curiosity. While the elder remains composed, Hyun reiterates that it's no use since he just cannot see them. Still, she asks him to be careful because if anyone prevents him from following his repetitive routine, which the Mu-jin just did, something bad will happen. Sadly, Hyun's warning came a bit too late. Now she just wants Mu-jin to get out of the way as the elder's sword is coming straight towards him to strike. Thankfully, Mu-jin is himself the power boy who is quite an expert in dodging stuff like this. But the redness in the air still remains as the elder comes towards him with his sword to make another strike. Mu-jin dodges again and again. No matter how quickly the strike comes or how many times they come, the boy does not allow even one to connect. But the elder does not appreciate this disrespect to his skills, so he powers up even more, causing that strange aura to start leaking out of him once again. Mu-jin has had enough since things are getting too dangerous. He also decides to bring out his aura. Both of them clash their hands with each other, creating an epic clash of auras, creating immense destructive power. The girl Hyun is also near, and this could seriously hurt her if they don't remain careful. She asks them to just stop. But among the smoke and dust around, purple aura is once again seen. This is just like what they witnessed earlier. It's that reaction again, exhibiting both extreme yang and extreme yin together. Hyun shouts, asking for that teacup to be returned to him, because if that is not done, then he will rampage even more. Mu-jin says that when surpassing an unreachable limit, the human body cannot withstand it. If her father keeps this up, then he will fall into his inner demon as his body bursts like a balloon, ending up spread into pieces. Being able to do this should clearly be an impossible realm, but the father's strange aura keeps on rising. Those purple flowers also start showing up. Now the human in front of them has turned into a being who is human, yet not a human. Mu-jin wonders what is the story behind this all. Girl Hyun again asks him to hurry up as things keep on getting more and more dangerous, just when the girl thinks that it's too late for doing anything. The boy Mu-jin throws the cup like he is pitching for baseball. The ball goes straight towards the dangerous aura. Anyone would think that the aura would destroy the cup itself, but that does not happen. Instead, the whole flower starts disappearing from the point where the cup touched it. Girl finally calms down as this is what she wanted. His father grabs the cup. His aura starts calming down once again. The dangerous vibes around also start going away. Elder puts the cup back on his table, pours more tea into it. Everything returns to normal. Mu-jin says nothing and just watches silently. The girl Hyun is also quiet now. Under a serene night sky, where two moons shine brightly among the clouds, casting a tranquil glow over the world below. On a balcony overlooking the scene, the girl Hyun and power boy Mu-jin stand side by side. Girl says that after finishing the interstellar tour, she came back home half a month ago, and everything had changed like that. Se-young, Robert, and the pilot are also standing still, as if not wanting to mess up anyone's routine. All those people are like wind-up dolls, repeating the same things at the same time in exactly the same way. The glasses guy Robert then tries talking to some other guy, hoping to learn what is going on here without realizing that if their repetition is interrupted, they just stop. Not just them, in fact, everything stops, and then strange things start happening around whoever disturbed them. Pilot Sunja and the glasses guy Robert wonder if that was some kind of teleport technique. Pilot says she does not know. Lady Se-young does not like this answer from her pilot Sunja, because if she does not know, then whom could she rely on for answers? Sunja then says that judging by the particle waveform, it seems like teleportation, but the scale is too large. While Se-young was thinking about the scale, she also notes how the surroundings became empty again. All signs of life have also disappeared from the entire planet. But this is not all that happens. The girl Hyun reveals further that when everyone disappears like that, those things appear. Whatever those things are, Sunja and others are soon about to see them right in front of their eyes. There is quite a number of them. And as they keep coming closer, Sunja and the others start getting worried. All of them have swords in their hands, but you cannot see any expression on their faces. It is hard to tell what exactly they are. But Robert understands that they all certainly are in a very dangerous situation. Once they are close enough to make out their details, Se-young gets shocked. They all agree that these are looking like some kind of androids. However, there is still a question about why they all look half-finished. Sunja analyzes and says that they're not androids, they're construction droids. They are models created for simple labor like planetary development. They are early models. They are equipped with low-capacity AI, so their cognitive abilities are limited. If they are just construction robots, then they don't think there is any need to be freaking out. As according to the 3 laws of robotics, droids can never harm a human. But Robert is not very sure since all of them are holding swords, which might just not be for show. Se-ryung says that those are probably just to be used in place of tools. She goes ahead to talk to them and says that there are people here, so all the droids should just move aside and find another path instead of crowding around and scaring people here. But before she can complete her sentence, the droid in front comes forward with his sword in the position to attack. Before, however, the sword can hit, the droid loses its arm due to an aura slash. Se-ryung also quickly moves back to create distance between her and the hostile droid. She shouts to ask what's the big idea at play here. Is it some kind of malfunctioning which is causing the droid to act this way? Then she notices that not just one droid but all the others behind it also start coming forward to attack with their swords. With so many droids attacking, they don't have any other choice than to keep on running as far away from them as possible, but the droids also give chase. When the girl Hyun came back after finishing the tour, she got attacked too. That was the reason why she had to flee and keep on hiding using that stealth ring. If it hadn't been for her father, she probably wouldn't have survived. Around this area filled with ominous energy, she is not sure why, but the fact is that for some reason they never come to this place. Her father wanders this area, then sits on the throne for some time where he meditates, causing that purple aura to engulf him. Maybe those droids are scared of him, or maybe he has got something to do with having the commanding power over them. Also, strangely enough, even when everyone else disappears, her dad still remains. But with this dangerous aura emanating from him, her daughter just never feels at ease. Her concern for her father just keeps on growing as long as he keeps on staying in that state. Moojin says that her father is still hanging on. She fails to understand what is the meaning of these words. The scene then shifts towards where Se-ryung, Sunja, and the glasses guy Robert is trying to survive the droid attacks. It is a scene of a chaotic battle against a horde of malfunctioning or aggressive androids. Everyone is confused and alarmed, questioning why the androids are acting this way, wondering if they are malfunctioning or if the androids no longer perceive them as humans. Soon the realization dawns that these are combat androids, specifically designed to attack humans. As the situation escalates, they prepare for the onslaught. Robert uses his brain to figure out how are these androids capable of attacking humans. Such combat androids can only be possible under a specific condition. Se-ryung shouts to alert others that the droids are coming again with their swords to fight. She is determined and protective while commanding the ship pilot Sunja to hold on tight and hide well, while she readies herself to fight, wielding a sword. The battle ensues with the androids launching a fierce attack while flying in all directions. But suddenly a huge explosion happens where those droids were, catching everyone by surprise. They are momentarily stunned, wondering what just happened. Then behind them they notice the glasses guy Robert in his combat suit, shockingly revealing to them that they are not droids. Then he further puts forwards his theory that the droids they are facing right now are Iron Gangster, reanimated corpses or zombies, but with a mechanical twist. Basically droid zombies. Se-ryung and her crew found themselves surrounded by thousands of droids, their fate seemingly sealed. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious figure was watching everything unfold through a camera feed. The observer, working for a sinister leader, had been keeping tabs on Se-ryung and her crew. The observer noted that the group was led by the infamous Blazing Devil, Tang Se-ryung, accompanied by an intelligent android named Sunja. In a sudden twist, it was revealed that Sunja wasn't even human. An unexpected plot twist that could shock anyone who knew her. The observer continued, identifying Robert Carlyle, a former first sergeant from the elite Northern Galaxy Combat Unit, Special Tactical Division. With the group operating as bounty hunters on the fringes of the galaxy, the observer claimed they posed no real threat. They could be wiped out in seconds, at least that's what they thought. The leader of the mysterious group, Count Rishal, was intrigued. His attention shifted from the droids to something even more puzzling, Moojin. Suspicion clouded Rishal's judgment. Moochin's arrival had piqued his curiosity, and it was enough to delay the final order for elimination. As Moojin approached the group, he casually asked what had happened, completely unaware of the intensity of the situation moments earlier. Robert, never missing a chance to boast, claimed he had single-handedly held off the attack. He proudly declared that had he listened to Se-ryung's suggestion to sell his equipment for quick cash, they wouldn't have survived. Robert insisted that his decision to keep everything in top condition had been the key to their escape. Se-ryung, however, sulked at the reminder of their past struggles, where money for ingredients had forced them into difficult choices. But before anyone could revel in the victory, Sunja dropped the bombshell. They hadn't truly won. The droids had retreated on their own, leaving them alive for reasons unknown. It wasn't Robert's equipment that had saved them, nor was it luck. Something else had caused the droids to pull back. Moojin stood in the midst of the battlefield, staring at the scattered metallic remains. Confused, he wondered aloud what these strange objects were. mistaking them for armor. Young, too exhausted to explain, simply told him they were droids, robots. But Mujin, from an era far removed from technology, was baffled. To him, the idea of metal acting like a person made no sense, and he dismissed the explanation as nonsense. Sunja, always logical, tried to clarify by explaining droids as machines that think and act like humans. But it wasn't until she removed her own head to reveal that she too was a droid that the reality hit Mujin hard. The shock was instant. He grabbed Huan, eyes wide in disbelief. A machine like Sunja, who he thought was human, had fooled him completely. Meanwhile, far from this moment of personal revelation, Count Rishal watched closely. The mysterious leader had been observing the entire exchange through the eyes of the defeated droids. Rishal's focus wasn't on the strange revelation of Sunja, though. His attention shifted to Mujin, a man who wasn't registered in any database, and more importantly, didn't possess an internal energy drive. Rishal dismissed Mujin as a fool, more interested in the figure of Robert Carlyle. Robert, a former first sergeant from the elite Northern Galaxy Combat Unit's Special Tactical Division, was a dangerous wild card, and Rishal suspected that Robert's presence at Mount Hua wasn't a coincidence. Something larger was in play. Elsewhere in the galaxy, a ship was speeding toward the Heavenly Demon Sect. Its arrival was greeted with great anticipation by Rak and Chun Rak, high-ranking officers of the sect. But when the ship's door opened, it wasn't what they expected. To their surprise, a baby, yawning from the long journey, stepped out as the supposed officer they had been waiting for. This child wasn't just any baby. This was Cho Dai, a first-class officer from the disaster safety headquarters of the Heavenly Demon Sect. The stakes had just been raised. Cho Dai had just stepped off his long, exhausting journey when Rak eagerly approached him with something important to show. Cho, tired and unimpressed, made it clear that whatever it was, it better be worth his time. A short while later, they wheeled in Wayu, who was now in a wheelchair. Rak wasted no time pointing out the strange palm mark on Wayu's head, hoping Cho would notice something unusual. Given Cho's short stature, he had to climb onto a table to get a closer look. With his small hands on Wayu's scalp, he asked if there was still any pain. Wayu responded that while the pain had subsided, a strange heat remained. Surprised by this, Cho asked if Wayu truly only felt heat and no pain. Wayu confirmed it, just as Cho suddenly smacked him on the head, nearly making Wayu bite his tongue. Despite the unexpected strike, Wayu remained silent, knowing he was in no position to complain. As Cho mulled over the situation, Rak chimed in, adding his own observations. He placed his hand on Wayu's head and noted that the palm strike didn't quite match typical martial arts techniques. The scar had swelled, but the strike itself seemed unusual. Cho quickly corrected him, explaining that the technique was, in fact, the Nine palm. Both scars were from this technique, but something wasn't right. Later, as they sat aboard the ship, Chun Rak brought in a box of food, ready to serve. Rak took the opportunity to discuss the strange scar further. He explained that the Nine palm was a basic martial art taught to all new disciples of the sect. Even he had mastered it by age 7. Yet, the scar on Wayu's head didn't resemble the usual marks left by the technique. Cho confirmed Rak's suspicions, revealing that the Nine palm typically leaves behind a cold sensation. But Wayu was feeling heat, which suggested something far more impressive. It meant that Mujin had achieved a level of mastery where he could suppress the natural cold energy of the Nine palm, leaving only the heat. This wasn't just skill. This was Mujin's careful consideration to avoid harming his opponent. Rak, astonished by the revelation, asked if it was even possible to reverse the nature of martial arts in such a way. Cho, calm and composed, acknowledged that while rare, it was theoretically possible. With that, Cho shifted the mood, suggesting they take a break with some black bean noodles, a moment of levity after the intense discussion. Meanwhile, back on the S-Devil's ship, Robert was debriefing the crew about the droids that had attacked them. These weren't just any machines, they were Iron Ganji, known for their deadly precision and relentless durability. Ser Young was staring at the sausage on her plate like it held the answers to the universe. As she picked one up, her thoughts drifted to Robert's earlier explanation. He'd mentioned something about Iron Ganji, a term that stuck with her. Apparently, while Robert was still active in the military, he'd caught wind of a rumor. It seemed there was a project to create a new type of android that could bypass the usual safeguards against harming humans. Ser Young had initially brushed it off, thinking it was absurd. After all, every android's intelligence circuits were governed by the 3 laws of robotics. They couldn't hurt humans, right? But Robert had dropped the bombshell, Those laws were being bypassed by replacing the androids' intelligence circuits with the brains of deceased humans. That's why the project was called Iron Ganji. It all sounded far-fetched, but given the day they were having, the line between science fiction and reality was starting to blur. Meanwhile, Mujin was oblivious to the gravity of the conversation, more interested in poking at Sunja's face. His mind was still trying to grasp the idea that Sunja wasn't human. The whole concept seemed beyond him. Sunja, ever helpful, offered to take off her head again as proof, or maybe even disassemble her arms and legs for good measure. Mujin waved her off, not really needing that level of demonstration. He was still processing the fact that the world had gotten so strange. Deciding he'd rather eat than deal with more mind-blowing revelations, Mujin turned his attention to the food, only to realize it was all gone. Se Young, who had been wrestling with the possibility that Robert's Iron Ganji theory might actually hold water, was pulled back into reality by Mujin's sudden, furious expression. She quickly put two and two together. Mujin wasn't upset about their conversation. He was fuming because the sausage was gone. Before she could react, Mujin's frustration boiled over. He angrily declared that even if martial world etiquette had disappeared, disrespect like this, stealing his food, was an unforgivable crime. He had already declared himself the supreme heavenly demon, and this level of disrespect was too much. Se Young blinked, trying to make sense of his outburst. Supreme heavenly demon? What is he even talking about? She thought. Robert didn't seem too sure either, recalling Mujin's earlier self-introduction with a shrug. It didn't really matter at the moment. They had bigger problems to deal with than figuring out Mujin's self-proclaimed titles. Seeing that Mujin's issue was food-related rather than something they could immediately solve, Se Young decided they needed to focus on the more pressing issue of the droid attack. She motioned for Robert and Sunja to follow her, leaving Mujin alone with his scattered thoughts and empty stomach. Left behind, Mujin eventually calmed down, scavenging the tray for the last remaining sausage crumbs, which he quickly devoured. Back at the site of the attack, Robert inspected one of the broken droid parts with a look of disappointment. The craftsmanship was poor, the joints weak, and the materials used were cheap. Sunja, scanning the droid, confirmed his suspicions. These weren't fully developed units but prototypes, incomplete and lacking the finesse of finished combat models. What intrigued her more, though, was the simplicity of the droid's neural networks. She pulled out an M27 chip and tossed it aside, explaining that the droids weren't much smarter than basic machines. They lacked any autonomous will and were designed solely to receive commands. Se Young had just learned that all the droids attacking them were being remotely controlled. Sunja, ever the tech whiz, nonchalantly dropped the bomb that there were exactly 9,817 droids, and each one was being piloted by a human. Yup, 9,817 people out there were controlling these machines like some high-stakes video game. But the weirdness didn't end there. When Se Young asked about the population of Mount Hua, Sunja pointed out something eerie. Mount Hua had exactly 9,818 people. You do the math. One person was missing, and, of course, that missing person just so happened to be the Mount Hua sect leader. The plot was thickening faster than a bad sci-fi novel. Meanwhile, back at the Heavenly Demon sect, Cho Dai, still trying to recover from his long journey, casually ordered a full lockdown of District 32. No one in, no one out. Rak, curious about the sudden escalation, asked why this was happening. Cho Dai, in true dramatic fashion, explained that after 2,000 years of peace, the martial alliance was losing its grip. He whipped out an extended metaphor about tigers losing their fangs, with wolves stepping up to fill the void. But it wasn't just about wolves taking over, oh no. The wolves would start thinking they were tigers themselves. And when that happens, they're going to come for the strongest wolf first. Right now, the Heavenly Demon sect was that strong wolf, and Cho Dai wasn't about to let them get hunted down. Rak, probably still trying to process all the tiger wolf talk, asked if the mysterious person using their martial arts had anything to do with this. Cho Dai's response? A classic, I don't know. Super helpful. What he did know, however, was that the unidentified figure was headed straight for Mount Hua. Things were heating up faster than anyone could handle, and Cho Dai wasn't sticking around. He jumped into his ship and sped off, leaving Rak to wonder if they were headed for disaster or just more cryptic nonsense. Over at Mount Hua, Se Young and her crew arrived at the sect leader's last known location, where Huan dropped a new piece of disturbing info. Apparently, the missing people, they reappeared at night except for one person. That's right, the Mount Hua sect leader. Huan cryptically hinted that he hadn't returned in his normal form, whatever that meant. Things were quickly spiraling into the realm of the paranormal. As Se Young and the crew tried to make sense of it all, They were left with a tangled web of droids, missing people, and ominous threats looming over the heavenly demon sect. One thing was becoming clear. Something big was about to go down, and they were right in the middle of it. Se-Young was getting a bit antsy and asked Sunja how much time they had until sunset. Sunja, always on point with the details, coolly reminded her that on Mount H planet, day and night switch every 6 hours, and, oh look at that, just 1 second left until sunset. And right on cue, as if he were programmed for it, the sect leader began rubbing Huen's head like clockwork. Huen, clearly used to the bizarre, explained that her father's actions, whether it was stroking her head, sipping tea, or reading in the garden, were all done without consciousness, like he was on autopilot. He had even pulled the same trick last year on her birthday, and every day since, he repeated the same exact actions when the sun rose. Meanwhile, Robert, who was still on the lookout, reported through the earpiece that no one had appeared, and the streets were eerily empty. Se-Young, confused, asked Sunja what was up and why the people of the district were being fashionably late. Sunja, in her usual matter-of-fact tone, revealed that something odd was happening. Instead of people showing up, it looked like they were fading. Se-Young's confusion quickly turned to panic as she realized she herself was starting to fade out of existence. Within moments, her vital signs completely disappeared, leaving her nowhere to be found. Talk about a sudden exit. Elsewhere in the Milky Way on the Greenwood ship, a report came in to Sunbomb. He was chilling, watching the planet from his ship, when the driver informed him that a teleportation had just been detected from the center of Mount H planet. Analysis showed that it was none other than Se-Young, and she had been transported to the second moon of Mount H called Genta. And what's Genta without some random golden light suddenly appearing? That's right, Se-Young materialized, completely disoriented, after what had clearly been an unauthorized, forced teleportation. Initially thinking she was fading into oblivion, Se-Young had been terrified. She even had one of those life-flashing before-my-eyes moments, thinking she was about to die and turn into a ghost. But, to her relief and confusion, she was back. Looking around, she saw Rishal and his droids. Of course, she had no idea who this guy was. But, what's another mystery at this point? Back on the Greenwood mothership, the driver was reporting that this teleportation was a bit fishy. There were no signs of consent from the teleported person, which raised red flags. A forced transfer like this was, in fact, illegal under galactic law. The driver suggested that maybe, just maybe, they should report this to the higher-ups. But Sunbomb, always the humble guy, hit him with a, "Is there anyone higher than me?" The driver, instantly regretting his life choices, dropped to his knees and assured Sunbomb that he was indeed the one and only authority. Sunbomb, clearly enjoying his boss moment, told the driver to keep monitoring the situation. If the illegal teleportation was connected to some high-level tech, there was no point rushing in. They needed to figure out if meddling with whatever was going on in Genta would bring more harm than good. Wise words, Sunbomb. Wise words. Meanwhile, in another scene, the matron was left speechless when Elena told her about a man she met on Mount H who had the audacity to claim he was her father. Not only did she lose a duel to him, but he outright declared that he was the one who had fathered her. The matron, visibly shaken, stood up and stared outside. She had never imagined that the man who had defeated her daughter and made such a bold claim was now at Mount Hua. Things were about to get a lot more complicated. And while all this was happening, the S-Devil ship was cruising along, with its crew completely unaware of the wild mess that was unfolding across the galaxy. Robert, in full panic mode, was frantically telling Mujin they had to save the captain because, apparently, some lowlife dared to kidnap her. While he was going off on his rant, Mujin was standing there, utterly confused, wondering what on earth Robert was saying. Sunja, equally baffled, explained that she didn't know either. He was just swearing up a storm, and honestly, she didn't really want to translate it. Meanwhile, Huen chimed in, suggesting that Se-Young's kidnapping might be linked to the strange incidents happening on Mount H. Maybe others had been taken the same way, but of course they had zero proof. That's when Sunja cut in, correcting Huen with an actually moment, saying they did have evidence. The people of Mount H had disappeared the same way, through forced teleportation. And since it was without consent, it pointed to a forbidden unilateral teleportation, a big no-no in galactic law. Robert, in true dramatic fashion, grabbed Mujin by the shirt, practically yelling, "See? Everyone's trapped somewhere. We can't just sit around." Mujin, keeping his cool, turned to Sunja and asked, "What's his deal?" Sunja, all business as usual, explained that Robert had post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, from his military days. and stress triggered his uncontrollable anger. Mujin, ever the calm one, politely asked Robert to let go of his shirt. Sunja, shaking her head, said it was no use. Once Robert got worked up, he didn't listen to anyone. But when Mujin asked again, more seriously, Robert miraculously let go. Sunja, slightly shocked, muttered that Mujin could probably teach anger management classes at this point. A few minutes later, Sunja was busy breaking down the situation for them. If Se-young had been forcibly teleported, there were limits to how far she could have gone. Long-range teleportation? Not happening. So it had to be either on the Mount planet or one of its 2 moons. Mujin, not one for puzzles, asked, "So, where exactly?" Sunja confidently eliminated the Mount planet, since the only life sign there was the sect leader. That left them with 2 options, Genta and Ceres. Both moons had life signs, so it was a bit of a guessing game. After thinking it over, Sunja decided on Ceres, the golden planet, purely because Se-young had a thing for gold. Unfortunately, Sunja was dead wrong. Se-young was actually on Genta. Meanwhile, Se-young was face-to-face with Rishal and his droid army. Rather than answering her question about his identity, Rishal's droid started analyzing her like she was a piece of tech. It reported back with a rundown of Se-young's specs: a 1.4G external energy drive and a 3.3G ultra-high-density internal energy drive. The only external weapon she had? An electronic soft sword. Rishal, clearly unimpressed, noted in a disappointed tone that her internal energy drive was only 3.3G, barely more than a glorified toaster. He added that for a backwater bounty hunter, she sure was hiding something she couldn't even properly use. Se-young, fed up with all the tech talk, asked again, "Who are you? Are you deaf?" Somewhere far away, in a shadowy place filled with plants barely illuminated by dim light, Danen was reporting to his master about the growing issue at Mount H. Before Danen could even begin, the master, ever the cryptic one, already knew what was on his mind. He dropped a proverb out of nowhere. "Do not act impulsively and wait until the bud fully blooms. Only then can you tell if it's a poplar or a willow tree." In other words, they were going to sit tight and wait until their enemies fully revealed themselves before making any moves. The master, exuding all the patience of a parent with a teenager, calmly looked at Chodai and said something along the lines of, "I raised you to figure things out for yourself by now, or have you still not matured enough?" Of course, Chodai didn't dare respond, but in his head you could almost hear him thinking, "Is this guy for real right now?" The master, clearly not getting the answer he wanted, turned his back to Chodai, casually asking if there was something else he needed to discuss. "Ah yes, let's hear what else is troubling you, my overly dramatic disciple," the master seemed to imply. Chodai, trying to keep his cool, explained that during his investigation, someone rather unexpected had shown up. This mysterious figure not only performed the sect's martial arts but had achieved the impossible, reversing the energy flow. Oh, and as if that wasn't enough, this guy also mastered the ultra-secret Demon Heart Sura sword technique to its highest level. The kicker? This guy wasn't even affiliated with their sect. At first, the master, cool as a cucumber, told Chodai to just deal with the guy. Problem solved, right? But Chodai, probably thinking, "Wait, did I hear that right?" dared to question the order. "What do you mean?" This seemed to flip the master's switch from zen to full-blown rage. He snapped at Chodai, calling this rogue martial artist an anomaly, a monster. He made it crystal clear that Chodai's job was simple: find him and take him down, and do whatever it took to make sure this problem was eliminated. No excuses. And so, Chodai, possibly regretting all his life choices, was sent off on another mission, hunting down our protagonist, unknowingly digging himself deeper into what can only be described as a very elaborate grave. Se-young, standing firm in the dimly lit room, demanded answers. Her frustration grew as the figure in front of her remained silent, completely unfazed by her presence, calmly sipping his drink, and instead of responding to her, he casually ordered a droid behind him to check it. The droid, eyes glowing red, came to life instantly, ready for action. Before Se-young could fully react, the droid leaped from the shadows, attacking with swift, precise movements. Se-young quickly dodged, her body instinctively moving out of harm's way as the droid slammed into the ground where she stood just moments before. Regaining her balance, Se-young channeled her energy, her hands glowing with a golden light. She was done playing defense. But things took a sharp turn when the droid countered with surprising speed. Before she knew it, Se-young was caught off guard, its metallic claws gripping her tightly. Her expression says it all. How is this hunk of metal so fast? It was as if the droid wasn't even trying, simply outmatching her in both strength and speed. This was definitely not going according to plan. Meanwhile, Rishal, sitting comfortably and nonchalantly sipping from his cup, watches the entire ordeal with a calm demeanor. Rishal, seated calmly, begins a questioning session with Ser Young, offering her a chance to avoid suffering if she cooperates. However, Ser Young isn't interested in playing along, rejecting his offer outright. Surprised by her sudden attack, Rishal observes Ser Young's strength and adaptability. Meanwhile, she draws her energy weapon, creating a powerful whirlwind of force that sends the droids into defensive mode. Despite their counterattacks, Ser Young's swift moves keep her ahead, blocking and evading their strikes. The clash intensifies as she uses her skills to fend off the mechanical threats. Throughout the battle, Rishal remains composed, confident in the abilities of his droids. He claims that his technology holds knowledge of all martial arts, implying that Ser Young's moves, though impressive, are up against something far greater. The battle intensifies as Ser Young faces off against the adaptive droids. Realizing that the droid can read all her movements, she struggles to keep up with its speed and precision. Launching an attack with fierce determination, she tries to unleash a powerful attack, slashing through the air with her energy sword. But the droid is too quick, countering her strikes with ease and even landing a painful blow on Ser Young, sending her flying across the battlefield. Despite the impact, Ser Young recovers quickly, her resolve unwavering, determined to defeat the droid. As she spins her weapon in a dazzling display of skill, but the droid, unfazed, channels her energy into a powerful attack, launching herself at the droid with a lightning-fast strike, labeled Bullet. Her weapon glows intensely, and she thrusts it with incredible speed toward the droid, trying to land a decisive blow. But the droid isn't easily outmatched. It blocks Ser Young's attack at the last second, catching her sword mid-strike. The two clash in midair, a flurry of sparks flying between them. Ser Young is caught in the droid's grip, and for a brief moment, it seems as if she's in trouble. Ser Young takes a powerful hit directly to her chest from the robot's hand, sending shockwaves through her body. The impact from Ser Young's previous attack causes debris to scatter, showing the force of the blow. One of Ser Young's strikes lands directly on the robot's head, piercing it with her energy weapon. As the weapon remains embedded in the robot, Ser Young is lifted into the air, but the damage is clear. The robot and Ser Young ascend into the air, locked in their combat. The masked figure from earlier crushes something in his hand, and it shatters into pieces, clearly frustrated by the ongoing battle. The masked figure calls out the Dark Heaven Blood Dragon Dagger, and angrily shouts about the Sichuan Tang clan. The damaged robot falls to the ground after the struggle, finally succumbing to Ser Young's assault. In the aftermath, Ser Young stumbles and looks ahead toward the masked figure. Ser Young rises from the ground after her intense clash. She defiantly demands to know the person in front of him. The masked opponent, looking surprised, questions how Ser Young knows the Sichuan Tang clan's martial arts, especially since the clan was wiped out a decade ago. Ser Young activates her Qi Internal Operation System, QIOS, a last-ditch effort fueled by desperation. A green aura envelopes her, signaling her readiness for battle. Desperate times call for desperate measures, she thinks, fully committing to her new plan. The system activation reaches maximum as her energy spikes, showing she's fully prepared for whatever comes next. The masked man recognizes her technique, realizing that she's using the legendary Xuanwu Divine Art, a secret martial technique of the Tang clan. As Ser Young's energy explodes, silencing her opponent with a burst of power, recognizing her aerial assault as a full-scale attack from all directions. A bright green energy beam shoots upwards with intense speed and power. The beam explodes into a mesmerizing green firework display. The masked dude's eye reflects the green energy. He observes the display of energy, identifying it as the Infinite Rain Blossom technique. The technique causes a massive disturbance within the area, with green energy radiating everywhere. A large spaceship appears in space. Inside a grand hall, a conversation begins about a strange encounter. One of the people here is Elena Mujinshod, whose boss in an earlier face-off. She had arrived at Mount Hua for a specific mission. Then she recalls losing consciousness briefly and then awakening in front of that masked dude. A dramatic standoff occurs. Elena is clearly confused as to why she was there, but her mother calls this unilateral teleportation. Masked dude asks Elena to not be surprised as he claims to have called her here to grant her something she herself wishes for. Elena still ain't sure about trusting this creepy-looking masked dude, But then he starts talking about how she wanted to become stronger, while wanting to see the world beneath her feet. That is why, even after earning the infamous title of 8-foot fighting ghost, she still turned even spaceships into duel arenas, pursuing nothing but battles. But the closer she got, the more distant the path became, leading her to despair, crying every night in hopelessness. Due to all that this creepy masked dude called Elena here, he claims to be wanting to just give her strength. The strength to look down upon the world. Hearing all that, Elena was sure that he certainly knew a lot about her. But she still first wants to know who the guy in front of him was, as whatever he talked about was infuriatingly unpleasant, even though all of that was certainly true. The masked dude, clearly tired of the conversation, stands up and says that she will understand everything after their clash. Apparently, talking isn't his strong suit, so it's time for action. After some time, we see Elena totally defeated. Se-young presently is also facing the same fate. They both fought, but no matter what they did, it proved to be all futile against that creepy masked dude. All their moves were as effective as throwing marshmallows at a tank. To Elena, the smug villain once again says that he will make her strong just like him, because she is his daughter. But to Se-young, the dude expects an answer to his question. If she answers, he promises to make her weak body strong at the cost of abandoning her useless mind. Then we see Elena finally show her mother the new strength which she received from that creepy masked dude claiming to be her father. It is some kind of steel fortification. Now, things are getting intense. I wonder if Se-young will also receive something like this. Meanwhile, in another part of the story, we meet Sunja. All cute and stuff. The guy next to her, Robert, is freaking out, wondering why aren't they leaving yet, since they are sitting ducks here. But Sunja is focused on the radar blips. The radar is going beep 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 for some reason. Then we take a look at their Optimus Prime-looking space truck soaring through the space towards a massive, ominous heavenly object, which looked quite massive at first but turns out to be very small from close up. Robert spots something ahead on the radar and reacts quickly, asking Sunja to tell the ship in front to move, or he'll deal with it himself. Sunja, staying calm, explains that she can't. When Robert asks why, the ship ahead may look small, but it's a Celestial-class battleship, far superior to their own. Then, she delivers the crucial detail. It belongs to the Heavenly Demon Sect, leaving Robert to realize the gravity of the situation. Robert's moment of realization hits him like a truck. Robert and Sunja walk alongside that peculiar big baby-like character, who calmly leads the way as if they've all stumbled into something much bigger than they anticipated. They enter a sterile, futuristic room, and the baby monk steps forward, facing a solitary figure seated at a table in the distance. The atmosphere becomes tense, like they're about to uncover something huge. At the table, we see a familiar face, Mujin, sitting calmly, cutting into his meal. He seems unfazed, just focused on his food, as if this is just another ordinary day for him. The baby monk, however, senses something. His eyes widen slightly, and the words cross his mind. That person! Robert, still puzzled by the sudden appearance of the baby monk, cautiously wonders aloud why someone from the Heavenly Demon Sect would be here of all places. The monk, unfazed, calmly introduces himself as a first-class officer from the Disaster Safety Headquarters Central Committee of the Heavenly Demon Sect. This title alone sends a wave of shock through Robert. The baby monk approaches the table where Mujin is sitting, casually cutting into his meal, completely relaxed as if nothing unusual is happening. Baby monk tells Mujin to speak freely and comfortably. Mujin, while still focused on his meal, is told by the baby to stay out of the situation. He names the mastermind behind everything, Richel Archimond. As the baby monk continues, he explains Richel's past, a once-renowned top scientist who was deeply involved in developing military weapons for the human government. Richel was responsible for a project known as the Steel City, a massive endeavor that was heavily reliant on creating advanced androids and war machines. However, as the monk explains, Richel's inhumane methods led to his expulsion from the project. This decision forced him to disappear from the public eye, and Robert's reaction reflects the unease of hearing about such a powerful and dangerous figure from the past. The baby monk informs Mujin and the group that Richel Archimond is hiding and conducting experiments on a larger scale. Richel wasn't just expelled but is secretly receiving more funding. The baby monk suggests that factions within the human government's military may be supporting Richel's actions. Sunja walks up to the table where Mujin sits and requests water. The baby monk notices that despite all the information revealed, Mujin remains completely unfazed. He wonders to himself who Mujin really is, given his calm demeanor. Robert, in disbelief, questions the involvement of military factions, realizing the gravity of the situation. Baby then calmly tells them that this is beyond civilian control and advises them to stay out of it. Robert, now more concerned, asks what they should do about their kidnapped captain. The baby monk responds bluntly that there's nothing they can do except pray for her. Tensions rise as Robert slams the table, refusing to accept the monk's words. He's determined to rescue their captain, stating that if anyone tries to stop them, there will be consequences. Mujin calmly drinks from his cup. He makes it clear that he's not going to get involved, but he's not going to follow whatever the baby monk is saying either. Mujin then questions the monk's motives. Why would someone give away such valuable information so easily? It's suspicious, and Mujin's instincts tell him there's more to the story. Their true intentions, it seems, are to avoid responsibility. Mujin remains calm, sipping his drink, but inwardly, he's aware of the manipulation attempt. He comments on how even a hairless kid is trying to manipulate him, but he's not falling for it. Baby monk then asks Mujin directly, who exactly is he? He's curious to know more about this mysterious figure who has shown such strength and calmness throughout this ordeal. Mujin, still calm and composed, asks the monk if this is the real reason they approached him. If not, then they have no business with each other, and their paths won't cross again. The baby monk hesitates for a moment but doesn't respond immediately. The air is thick with tension as Mujin prepares to leave the room. As Mujin walks away, the monk finally blurts out another question. Does Mujin have any connection to the heavenly demon sect? His voice shows a bit of urgency. Mujin walks away, responding that he has no connection, leaving the situation even more ambiguous. The baby monk insists on confirming again, emphasizing that Mujin's actions will now be separate from the sect and their responsibility. Mujin dismissively waves his hand, saying that he understands and that they can leave since he's busy. Baby monk leaves. Mujin stands by a large window, observing the space scene with a calm, contemplative expression. He reflects on the situation, thinking to himself that it's a relief there are still talents in the heavenly demon sect. However, despite the talent, Mujin also notes to himself that they are still too immature. In the cockpit, Robert gears up and announces that it's time to move forward and do things properly, showing renewed determination. Sunja, sitting beside him, calmly informs Robert that the coordinates have changed, introducing a complication. Instead of the previously set destination of the moon Cyceris, Sunja reveals that they are now headed toward the moon Genta, altering their course. The baby monk sits silently at the control panel, observing the screen. Genta, which is the second moon of Mount Hua planet, a strange black sphere is shown on the moon's surface, adding an air of mystery and danger to the location. The legs of a mysterious figure in a sleek, black suit appear, lying on the ground motionless. A robotic figure ritual is seen dragging the body of the same person, pulling them through a dark and eerie hallway. The scene transitions to what seems like a futuristic lab with dim lighting and advanced technology filling the room. A distant shot reveals the robot dragging the person into the lab, heading towards a bright, illuminated platform. The robotic figure continues to drag the body, revealing more of the high-tech surroundings as they enter a larger space. The silver-haired figure finally speaks, asking, "What are you trying to do?" As they look towards the motionless body, the situation becomes tense as she is asked, "Have you awakened?" Se-young, dazed and struggling, asks Richel Archimond where they are and what he's doing to her. Richel calmly responds that he intends to free her from pain. A futuristic chamber filled with tanks appears, as Richel reveals his plan to erase all her memories, even the darkest ones. Richel states that he'll turn Se-young into an iron gangster, giving her a life of complete obedience. Se-young attempts to move but groans in pain, feeling her body's restrictions. Richel explains that he's blocked all her meridians and paralyzed her nervous system, rendering her unable to control her body. The control device falls apart, symbolizing her loss of control as Richel emphasizes that her body will no longer obey her. Richel cruelly tells her that all she can do is wait for him like a good pet, as Se-young struggles. Richel, standing confidently, continues to mock her efforts, declaring that it's no use to resist. A close-up of Richel's eye reflects his determination to complete his twisted experiment. Se-young stands up against Richel, her aura glowing ominously. She defiantly tells Richel that although he may take down people of the Sichuan Tang clan, he can never dominate them, showing her clan's indomitable spirit. Her eyes glow fiercely, blood dripping as she makes her stand, speaking with unwavering resolve. Richel looks on, seemingly surprised or contemplative by her fierce resistance. Se-young's hand glows green as she strikes Richel, unleashing a deadly poison attack. The full scene is revealed as Se Young channels her attack directly into Richel's body, which sparks with green energy. Se Young explains that her attack is called Pigeon Blood Poison, a deadly technique passed down in the Tang clan, used in their final moments. Se Young reveals the true nature of the poison. It's only meant to activate when they die. Richel struggles as the poison begins to affect him, expressing his pain and confusion as the poison starts to take hold. Se Young confidently declares that the more her heart burns, the stronger her poison becomes, reaching a point where it can even melt metal. Richel, visibly shocked and pained, hears Se Young mock him with the line, "Hey, you ugly monster," leaving him stunned as he reacts to her surprising strength. Se Young, with tears of blood streaming from her eyes, declares that she and Richel will end together, showcasing her fatal resolve. A mechanical being enters the scene, interrupting the moment. Se Young strikes at Richel while the robot locks them in place, creating a tense standoff. The robot and Se Young's movements escalate. A red alarm light begins flashing ominously. Richel notices the alarm with a shocked expression, realizing that the situation is spiraling out of control. The facility's security system triggers, announcing an intruder detection as the stakes rise further. Mujin's face is shown, illuminated by red hexagonal patterns on his cheek, indicating that he, too, is aware of the impending danger. Mujin stands calmly in front of a powerful, armored Robert who appears ready for battle. The two of them witness a distant, ominous eruption of red in the landscape, which begins to take form into something foreboding. A vast army of red-eyed, mechanical warriors appears, surging forward in large numbers, seemingly prepared for an inevitable confrontation. Mujin and Robert, now fully armored in his mech suit, stand ready to face an incoming army of robotic enemies. A massive army of robots, each with glowing red eyes and swords, charges forward in formation, making their approach toward Mujin and Robert. Robert, with confidence, tells Mujin to go rescue Se Young, their captain, while he holds off the robotic army. His determination is clear as he takes charge of the situation. However, before Robert, in his powerful mech suit, can launch any devastating attack, Mujin springs into action. Robert reacts with surprise as something unexpected is happening. Mujin heads into a dark void, surrounded by red, glowing lights. The area is filled with flying robots, all moving toward a glowing red source in the distance. It seems like an ominous force is drawing them in. A massive explosion occurs, with debris and flames erupting into the sky. The fiery blast seems to have been triggered at the heart of the robots gathering. Robert, witnessing the explosion, is dumbfounded. A horde of robots, illuminated by the fiery explosion, march forward in unison, unfazed by the destruction around them. Robert, still in his armored suit, speaks with determination, asking for a bit more help to deal with the overwhelming numbers. The scene zooms out to show a vast battlefield filled with robots as Robert prepares to charge forward, leading the counterattack. With a shout of determination, Robert fires his powerful arm cannons, unleashing a barrage of energy toward the enemy robots. Richel Archimonde, standing still, appears unfazed by the chaos around him, his expression calm and focused as if anticipating the next move. Richel stands in front of a large screen displaying a chaotic battle between drones and robotic forces. Robert is in the midst of battle, unleashing a barrage of heavy firepower toward the approaching enemy drones. The impact of the blast sends shockwaves across the battlefield. The bright orange glow of the explosion lights up the scene as the projectile flies through the air. Another weapon, marked TTR-8, is shown firing multiple missiles simultaneously, aiming at the clusters of enemy forces that are pressing forward. A powerful explosion erupts in the middle of the battlefield, scattering enemy drones and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Robert leaps into the air, surrounded by flames, as he prepares to land a powerful attack on the enemy forces below, demonstrating his overwhelming strength. Robert activating his rocket thrusters, propelling himself further into the air while dodges enemy strikes. Irobert's missiles are seen descending upon the battlefield, causing a massive explosion upon impact, further scattering the enemy forces. Richel Archimonde observes the situation with a composed expression, commenting on the outdated model of the robots, noting that they have been retired from active duty. Richel, reflecting on the situation, realizes that these retired robots were mistakenly deployed, deeming them useless against the current battle's demands. Richel Archimonde commands one of his android subordinates, instructing them to eliminate everyone left in the area. A series of red alarms blare through the facility, signaling an imminent threat. Richel reacts with a tense expression, realizing something is wrong. The android reports to Richel, notifying him that intruders have breached Zone 8. The android further updates Richel, informing him that the intruders have now advanced to Zone 7. Richel Archimonde, with an intense expression of shock, widens his eyes as he realizes something deeply unsettling. A mysterious figure is floating inside a large containment tank filled with liquid, surrounded by bubbles. The system reports the intruders' movements as they progress through various zones. Multiple tanks filled with similar figures are revealed, lined up in rows. The data continues to flow, with the system tracking the intruder but losing precise information. Richel Archimonde turns in disbelief, reacting to the unexpected discovery. Looks like something has gone terribly wrong. A robot assistant begins a new analysis of the intruder's location data, attempting to refine its tracking with bright light emanating from its body. A bright, explosive light consumes everything in a burst, spreading energy and debris everywhere, signaling a massive detonation. The explosion expands further, reaching its peak. Richel Archimonde, visibly affected by the explosion, is seen on the ground, clearly recovering from the impact. A glowing containment tank fills with bright energy, and within it, a figure begins to stir, surrounded by an eerie glow and bubbling liquid. The tank continues to bubble as the energy builds up, and the contents within the tank are about to be unleashed, setting the stage for what's to come. We see a figure in a capsule filled with blue liquid, with tubes connected to their body. The scene zooms out to reveal multiple similar capsules, each containing figures suspended in the blue liquid, creating an eerie atmosphere of a large-scale operation. Richel is walking forward in the room, with smoke and debris surrounding him. He continues his advance, walking down a corridor filled with smoke and debris, as light illuminates their path. Then we see Mujin standing calmly at the end of the corridor, looking composed and ready, as if waiting for an inevitable confrontation. Richel stands illuminated, his expression serious as his eye shines with determination, facing Mujin. Mujin gazes upward, meeting Richel's eyes with a look of curiosity and calm, creating a quiet yet intense moment of anticipation. Richel, in a moment of stunned realization, seems to grasp something unsettling. Richel Archimonde, with a shocked expression, stands next to Mujin. The two face away from each other, seemingly unaware of the immediate presence of the other. Both Richel and Mujin look down at a table where Se Young's body lies, seemingly lifeless. Se Young remains unconscious, with her arm completely gone, adding to the intensity of the moment. Richel, now reacting, questions aloud in disbelief who Mujin is. Se Young remains in a fragile state. Mujin, standing silently, reflects on the situation in front of him, noting the use of an innocent child's arm as part of the machine. His calm demeanor hides his internal turmoil in this vast, high-tech facility, filled with tubes and glowing containers. Mujin observes the eerie machinery with quiet detachment from a raised platform, emphasizing the starkness of his surroundings. He makes a subtle remark, recognizing that the beings involved are not human. Meanwhile, Richel Archimonde, standing nearby, his eyes glowing intensely, seems to be slowly coming to terms with the gravity of the situation. Mujin's eye hints at the awakening of something powerful within him. Richel, shocked and furious, demands to know who Mujin is and what he is doing, clearly on edge. Mujin calmly extends his hand, a gesture of control and power, while Richel looks unsettled by the situation. A powerful beam sword behind him is about to catch Richel off guard, as he reacts with widened eyes. The glowing blade starts moving. Mujin, who is controlling the blade, coldly declares that he does not converse with beings who are not human. A sudden burst of energy is unleashed as the blue light from the blade streaks across the room, directed at Richel. Richel barely reacts as the energy hits him, stunned by the unexpected force and precision of Mujin's attack. Mujin, now holding the blade, emits an aura of authority. Richel, in disbelief, labels Mujin as a void construct, implying his identity is far from human. A display also confirms his suspicions, indicating something unusual about his makeup or abilities. Richel's eye flashes with a sudden recognition or realization, glowing with a sharp yellow light as he questions how the figure before him could possibly possess such a unique and powerful ability. Richel Archimonde stands tall, while Mujin is positioned in the background. Richel reacts in frustration since someone has appeared who could challenge him at such a critical time. His body struggles as sparks of energy surge around the wound on his chest, clearly weakening him further. Mujin, standing face-to-face with Richel, remains calm and unwavering, showing no signs of intimidation as he witnesses Richel's struggling condition. Richel, with wide eyes, is stunned as Mujin directs his energy sword toward him. Mujin points out that Ritual is neither human nor a warrior. Mujin also makes a sharp comment about how Ritual is hesitating, thinking too much before a fight, emphasizing Mujin's confidence and calm demeanor. Ritual then suddenly launches a powerful strike, shouting in frustration, clearly intending to overpower Mujin. Ritual leaps into the air with great speed, charging up energy for another attack. Ritual was dashing forward when he notices that his arm has sustained injuries. Mujin walks calmly away, while in the background, Ritual is still in his attack phase. Ritual's hand got struck by Mujin's power, causing visible cracks in his energy barrier. The impact looks intense. Mujin stands over Ser Young's unconscious body, stating that her light has gone out. A close-up reveals Ser Young lying still, with clear signs of damage. Mujin, now with a stern expression, mentions that the consequences of his actions will come soon. Mujin begins to gather energy around him. A powerful aura surrounds him as he gets ready to unleash his power. Mujin's power erupts in a dramatic explosion, sending shockwaves through the area. Ritual, nearby, braces himself against the sudden energy surge. Ritual, now surrounded by the purple aura, looks distressed, commenting on the persistent force he's up against. The sheer force of Mujin's power seems overwhelming. His internal system is pushed to only 40% of its capacity, and he realizes that he might not be able to escape this situation. Ritual's inner drive activates with maximum energy output. The drive reaches full capacity with the text, "Drive Power Max," indicating Ritual has reached his peak energy output. Ritual releases a surge of energy, with warnings reading, "Danger, danger," as the overwhelming power becomes uncontrollable. Ritual is visibly strained, with more warning messages appearing, indicating danger, and issues with overheating control, further heightening the tension. Mujin watches the chaotic scene unfold, reflecting on the bizarre events, as he wonders how the world reached such a state of chaos. Mujin turns his back, as he prepares for what is coming. A close-up of Mujin's face shows him glancing over his shoulder, maintaining his calm composure despite the intense energy around him. Mujin shifts his attention to Ser Young, who, lying on the table, barely conscious, murmurs weakly, as if acknowledging her dire situation and the imminent danger around her. Mujin is suddenly alerted by something unexpected, his expression changing, as a powerful burst of light begins to manifest nearby. Mujin stares at the bright, glowing light right in front of him. The power he's witnessing leaves him speechless. The golden light is coming from Ritual bursting outward. The sheer force of the light appears to be devastating the area, as debris and energy scatter across the scene. The golden energy stretches far into the distance, almost piercing through the structure, illuminating everything in its path. The force seems concentrated, building to a climactic event.